Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Red Circle. Also, the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, be on the lookout. We're going to be starting a new Discord. We'll be promoting that on the Five Reasons Sports Twitter. That should be out by November 1st. And check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. That includes Better Edge. Use the code 5RSN. That's the number 5RSN. You get $20 to play. Our tournaments weekly, and I only went 1-4 this week. You could have beat me easily. Our tournaments weekly on the NFL are just $10 to play. Again, you're betting against others who use it. It's social betting. It's a stock exchange for sports betting. You are not betting against the app or against a bookie. That's why it's legal in the state of Florida. Go to betteredge.com. Use the code 5, that's the number 5, RSN. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne.
Yeah. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Bucker said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm Ethan Skolnick. Bit of a cold right now, so I apologize for hacking through this, but we wanted to give you, it's not an emergency podcast, but certainly a podcast we felt that we should do. Also got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket, and what we're going to talk about today, I mangled that tonight. Tropical Blanket. By the way, Greg and I have something going on here we're going to surprise you with, so just be prepared. Yeah, you.
Me?
Yes, related to that name. All right, but what we're going to do today, just going to fill you in on some Pat Riley interviews that dropped. And this doesn't happen a lot. So I want to put this into some context. There were two separate interviews that we've seen so far, one of which has gotten aggregated. The other hasn't yet. They appear to be different interviews. One was with Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald. One was with Ira Winterman of the Sun-Sentinel. These are the two beat writers that still do travel with the team. So I'm not surprised that he spoke to them for that. There's one other writer I wouldn't be surprised if he does a sit down with before the season starts. But we've essentially got these two interviews, and they don't appear to have been particularly long interviews, particularly one of them. But they're rare these days. Then that matters. Like, as we put into context, like what Pat said, there's also the issue of why Pat decided to say it publicly. And I read into that too. So we'll get into the background of this. But again, Pat Riley typically now speaks like once a year to the group, doesn't do a whole lot of side stuff. Maybe you can catch him at a charity event, but even at those, we're told don't ask anything but charity-related questions. So he doesn't talk basketball to most people, and doesn't do it very frequently. But he did today. So we're going to go through the Anthony Chang interview first, the one that's in the Miami Herald. Of course, we're around Anthony all the time. Have great respect for Anthony's work. I did have to get a couple of quotes in here clarified by some people around the Heat, not by Pat specifically, but by those familiar with Pat's thinking, because there were a couple of quotes, and I don't know. Again, I'm not pinning this on Anthony. Sometimes Pat speaks in a way now that he kind of skips a step on occasion. Like, I've been transcribing Pat for more than 25 years. I used to have to do it every day after practice in a little notebook. And then to my computer, and I know that sometimes it's not as linear as maybe it could be, and there's a couple quotes in here that were not linear at all, and so I just wanted to go through them. So, Alex, I'm going to go through this one quote, and then I'm going to give you the explanation on this quote, because this is the one that kind of jumped out to me as, wait, what is he actually saying here? Okay, here's the quote from Pat to Anthony Chang. We were very reluctant this summer in giving up all our assets in any kind of discussions with anybody, Riley said. I just want to repeat that part. We were very reluctant this summer in giving up all our assets in any kind of discussions with anybody. And then the next sentence is, and we decided that let's do it. Let's do it this year with Jimmy, and then we make some decisions from that standpoint. Jimmy and the crew. He's been with Tyler and Bam now going into his 5th year. So that's where my thinking is, and I think that's where Spo is also. The part I want to highlight here is between the first sentence and the second and third sentences. So this is what got me confused. We were very reluctant this summer in giving up all our assets in any kind of discussions with anybody. Okay, we've reported that. We know that. They were not just going to empty the tank for anyone, Dame or whatever, just because Cronin was playing hardball or wouldn't deal with them. They weren't going to say, here, take our entire team, take all 7 of our best assets. We've said that. That's not a surprise. And they still believe, and I can tell you from the highest levels of the organization, that the deal that they were willing to give Portland at the end was every bit as good as the one that Portland ultimately took. They're not saying it was better. They're saying it was in the range. We could have gotten there. That's what they say. Okay. Again, fans are going to take this for what it's worth. And I think the fans are a big part of this because I'll just start with this. I think Pat's doing this for the fans. Like, I think Pat did these interviews prior to the season and agreed to them, which he doesn't typically do these days, because he knows the atmosphere that's out there right now, and then particularly in the really passionate fan base, the social media fan base, because he mentioned social media specifically in his comments to, I think, Anthony or to Ira, that he knows that it's toxic out there right now, and that a lot of people don't understand their perspective, and I think that's why he's doing it. And I'm just going to say from the very start here, and I'm not saying it would have been any better if he'd come on 5 on the floor, although you're welcome to any time, Pat. I don't think this is going to help. And I'm looking at the way that the aggregation of it's been reacted to, and I can tell you it's not helping. These interviews made things worse, I think. Okay, and I'm not blaming Ira or Anthony. They're transcribing and they're getting his thoughts. But anyway, so the comment, I've got a fellow reporter texting me. So was that Riley stuff a group interview? Anyway, it was not. Okay, so the second part of this, Alex, though, and we decided that let's do it. Let's do it this year with Jimmy, and then we make some decisions from that standpoint. The way I read that initially was, let's give up all the assets, because he's saying we were very reluctant this summer in giving up all your assets in any of this kind of discussions with anybody, and we decided that let's do it. But of course, we know they didn't do it. So I had that clarified, and I was told there's basically a missing transition in there. That essentially it was, we weren't willing to give up all our assets, and so let's go forward with Jimmy and what we have. So I just want to clarify that part of it, because I don't know if that's how you read it, but we were bouncing it around on our thread, right? It's not, right?
It's not how I read it. That's why. I originally had
years. That's what I was told.
Yeah, I had read it as them implying that they would, after not being willing to do it, that they would be willing to, kind of throw everything down. And so that definitely changes the tone of the quote a little bit, because it's just, run it back in cursive almost. It's just a different variation of run it back, even though we know that it's more complicated than that. It's not the same team. And we've talked about it ad nauseum. But, I don't think this is what fans wanted to see today. And I was looking for – so are we going to keep going through other Pat quotes?
No, I want you to touch on this, then I'll get to the next one. But I'm going to let you react to all of these. So
Okay.
But again, your basic point here, I think we're in agreement. I don't think it's going to go over well with the fan base, even though I think it's accurate. It is exactly what happened. They didn't want to go all in. They didn't really have the opportunity to go all in with Portland anyway, because Cronin didn't grant them that opportunity. But they weren't just going to make the foolish, over-the-top move, to just gut the entire thing. So it's like, okay, we've got Jimmy and his group, and let's see what they can do. I think that's essentially what the quote is meant to say. But again, there was that little piece in there that made it seem like, oh, they did go all in and they just got rejected. No, they never really got the chance. Let me read you the next one here, because I think. I'm going to skip over the second one. Drew Starr, by the way, who we've had on the podcast, he transcribed Anthony's interview here, and it's Drew_Starr. So if you don't subscribe to the Herald, I encourage you to support local newspapers, but not the local newpaper that called us as small as we want to be and said we'd be gone in a couple of years in an internal memo. So I love Anthony, but you don't have to get a Herald subscription. Okay, so anyway. And I love Barry.
You're like Michael Jordan when it comes to that. Like, you will never let that go. Like,
no,
and I took that. I believe I get it. I get it, and I respect it. I'm
I'm
admiring
just
the
telling
petty
you,
here.
it's not the writers. I love them both, and when the
Yeah,
Herald
yeah.
folds, I'll hire them both. Okay, so here we go. You ready? All right, Drew _ star. He tweeted this out. This is another part of it. So I'm going to go to this part next. If someone there is an upgrade that might cost you a lot of assets and would shrink you in other areas and changes the role of other players, then you're taking a risk there yourself too. But I like the balance of our team. I like Jimmy's attitude. And then the next part of this, you get to a point where does it run its course? Does the team run its course? When it comes to the championship window, we're at the abyss. I don't mean that in any kind of ill manner other than what it is. When you come to the abyss, you got to get to the other side. And there's another part of this that he didn't transcribe, but I see it. He screenshotted it. We're in the 5th year, Riley said. Jimmy is anxious. We're anxious. And again, then that was the rest of the quote. But you get to a point where does it run its course? Not Jimmy, but does the team run its course? All right, some context, and I want to let you roll with this, okay? Context is the Heat always think of these things in terms of builds, okay? It's been described to me many times. And those builds essentially run in these like 3 to 5 year cycles, okay? So there was the Zoe Timmy build, right? And that was you get Zoe for Rice, you get Timmy, you get Jamal Mashburn, you see how far that group can push, you keep banging its head against the wall against the Knicks, right? And then Pat made the decision to pivot when they came off the floor in 2000 when they lost again. He went out, he traded Mashburn, he traded PJ Brown, core pieces on it, 3rd and 4th most important players on that team. Okay. Got Eddie Jones, got Anthony Mason, got Brian Grant, rebuilding it around Zozo, got sick. Okay. But that was the pivot. Okay. Then down cycle, Heat's down cycles never last as long as other teams. Build cycle, first with Karan, then with Dwayne. Then they accelerate that cycle by going to get Shaq, right? With Karan and Odom. Okay. So that was another, 3 to 5 year cycle. And it ended up sort of wiping out when Shaq, did a Shaq thing. Okay. And got old and got frustrated and all the rest of it. And then another, again, Dwayne kind of holding the fort, build cycle, go get the big 3, etc. And then, there was a little bit of a wilderness period for the organization after LeBron left. And then another, Goran was sort of the first part of it, didn't maximize it. Bosh got sick. That was a big reason for it. Otherwise, that might have been another successful build cycle. And then ultimately, after sort of the Whiteside years, then, as we like to call them, then that Jimmy is this new cycle. So essentially 3 to 5 year cycles. So Pat is acknowledging that they're in the 5th year of this cycle because they are, because Jimmy came, Bam and Tyler were here, and that's where they're at. But I think what's going to get to people here on this is, does the team run its course when it comes to the championship window? We're at the abyss. I don't mean that in any kind of ill manner other than what it is. When you come to the abyss, you've got to get to the other side. I usually can follow Pat's analogies, but I'm having trouble with this because the abyss basically means there's nothing out there, right? Isn't that how you read? I mean, that's the technical term for. I mean, Pat's much more of a
I was
wordsmith than
looking
me.
up the
He's written
dictionary
bestsellers,
definition.
but well, I'll look for it. But it just
I was looking it up. I have it here. It's a deep or seemingly bottomless chasm.
Right, like they're in a deep. Exactly, perfect. A deep or seemingly bottomless chasm. Like it's not even chasm, Alex. I'm helping you with this. It's chasm. And then the example uses a rope led down into the dark abyss. Or this one, the regions of hell conceived of as a bottomless pit, as in Satan's dark abyss, or a catastrophic situation seen as likely to occur, teetering on the edge of the abyss of a total political wipeout. I don't think Pat meant it the way he said it. What the hell do you think he means? Is he saying, if we don't, there's another quote about Jimmy here we'll get to afterwards, but is he saying like, okay, this isn't going anywhere? Because fans don't want to hear that. I don't think that's what he intended.
What is the other side of the abyss if it's a bottomless chasm, right? Like that's the problem
hole,
here.
Basically.
Yeah, like what's the other side? And I get what, because the way that he was building it up was like, the other side would obviously be the championship. And that's what he's I guess trying to say. I just think it came out a little bit clumsily, maybe not the right word. And I'm definitely not one to criticize about using the wrong words. But yeah, I think that's what it was here. It became a little bit hard to follow, but I do think he's just talking about getting to the other side of winning a championship. But just the word abyss is funny there because I think that's kind of where Heat fans are. after this after this summer, and the fact that this came out at this, in the same day as what we're going to talk about in the second half of the episode, which is kind of what Bradley Beal told Mark Spears. I just think it's bad timing. It's just like a mountain of coincidental information coming out at the same time. The interviews from Chang and Ira coming out at the same time, and I think people are going to take this the wrong way, and I think Heat fans are going to be upset. I believe there was a point in the article I was looking for it where he said we want to add to this, and he also kind of implied that when he said let's do it, when he said let's do it this year with Jimmy, and then we make some decisions from that standpoint, Jimmy and the crew. It sounds like what they're looking to do is, without getting to the second apron, make a move that'll help them get closer. That's kind of what I took away from all of this.
But according to Anthony's article here, they are in the second apron this year, but they're trying to avoid it next year when it becomes more onerous, right? So
see, that part is confusing because I thought the Depot dump where they gave up a second round pick to dump them to OKC was to get under the second apron, and I could have sworn that got them just below it, very close to it, but just below it. So that part threw me off a little bit. And also, to my understanding, the luxury tax bill comes at the end of the season, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, the luxury tax bill it gets equated based on what happens at the end of the year. That's why they're always trying to squeeze under at the last minute. There are different points on that.
Yeah. But honestly, like it does, that quote that we spoke about earlier, where it's like it makes it sound like you weren't willing to trade what it took to acquire superstars. And I think that's what kind of the message that fans are going to take from this, where it's like,
even if that's not really the case with the Lillard situation, right? Like that's why I think he made this worse. That's just my viewpoint on it.
Like, I don't think he made it better. I'll say that. I think because like we know that they offered a good amount, and I'm kind of with them. Like what you said, they believe they had enough to get him based on the deal that they ended up getting. And I was, by the way, because I don't think I ever said anything about that, I was very wrong that the Blazers weren't going to be able to get enough stuff in return for Jrue Holiday to justify the trade. I was super wrong about that. Even then, if you match up, asset by asset, what the Heat could have put together and reportedly what they would have been willing to put together, it's a pretty comparable trade. You could, like you said, you could say what the Bucks, what they got from the Bucks and what they ended up getting for Jrue makes it a better offer, but it was there. Like they put together a lot of stuff there. Now, I think what we're going to discuss for the next few minutes after the break is the Beal thing, because I don't think that was the same situation as far as willing to put down all the assets.
Yeah, and before we even get to the Beal thing here, I'm trying to, and it's funny because I actually did at one point pay for the Sun-Sentinel subscription, and now they won't let me in, so maybe they heard my comment. But I was trying to pull Ira's stuff because, and I'm going to call this up here right now, because he had slightly different comments. It wasn't as long an article, but one of them quoted it in a way that made it seem like Bam was not a given going forward. There's a pivot here in one of the two articles, and again, I'm trying to find it, where again it keeps talking about Jimmy going forward. Here, so let me see if I think I did actually get this to and it just shut down on me. So look at this. You know what? I tried to subscribe to you, Sun-Sentinel, and look what happens. Look at this. This is for how many years was I there? 8 years, and I can't even get on there.
This is fantastic radio. Good stalling by you, by the way.
It's great. Well, this is great. But
I have the article up if you want me to read some stuff from it.
Yeah, pull the Sun-Sentinel. Can you pull the Sun-Sentinel article here? Oh, here we go. Here, no, I'm sorry. I found where it was pulled from. And again, this is from you pulled a lot of the article here. We're very reluctant in summer to give up. Okay, that's where my thinking is. Or my supposed thinking is. Okay, he says. This is more about Jimmy. This is in the Anthony Chang article. This is a Herald article. I think that's the attitude he takes. He knows that it's not easy to do some of the things that the media or the fan base wants us to do. But yeah, I believe that's how he is. He says, well, this is what we got. Let's dig the foxhole. Let's jump into it, and let's go to battle. If somewhere there is an upgrade that might cost you a lot of assets and would shrink you in other areas and changes the role of other players, we've read this before, but then you're taking a risk there yourself. But I like the balance of our team. I like Jimmy's attitude. And then this is a parenthetical from Anthony. He says that approach has helped to lift Butler into an exclusive class of Heat players who Riley labels as the best to ever played for the organization. He's right there with Zoe. You got Wade, you got Shaq, you got Chris. I guess he didn't mention Timmy. And you got LeBron and you got Butler. So he's top 6. He's right in that group with guys that have really made a difference. And then again, we're in the 5th year. Riley said, Jimmy is anxious. We're anxious, but you get to a point where does it run its course? Not Jimmy, but does the team run its course? There are a couple of places here, and I can't get the IR article to come up right now, but there are a couple of places where it's about Jimmy into the future. And it just was interesting to me because typically it's Jimmy and Bam. And I don't know that means that he's pivoted in terms of his thinking, or if, again, this is just sort of misspeaking because there seems to be some of this in these interviews. But it doesn't seem like it's like a lock that, okay, like it's about getting Jimmy as a pillar, a title, right? Which, again, fans are going to disagree that the organization's all in on that when they've paid luxury. I mean, they're going to pay luxury tax this year about $20 million, but they've paid it like once in the past, however many years. But it does sound a little bit different than it's always been. Jimmy and Bam and what we can put around them. The way that this is presented, it made it seem like, no, it's Jimmy. And again, it could be the questions that were asked. It could be the way it was transcribed. It could be Pat just misspeaking. But it stuck out to me that it wasn't the Jimmy Bam build. We've always described this as the Jimmy Bam build, but it kind of seems like he's describing it as the Jimmy build. And for right now, we're going to go forward with Bam and Tyler. Did you read any of the comments that way or the focus on Jimmy?
I kind of get what you're saying as far as the focus on Jimmy. And I think it's obvious that Jimmy is the superstar here. We've all talked about him as sort of like, in the playoffs throughout this run, he's played like a top 5 player at worst. And so I get that part. But to me, I don't read into it all the way with the Bam and Tyler thing because Bam has been there for all these runs. And again, I'm not trying to shade Tyler. I'm really not. But, when you're missing for the past 2, right, for the finals run, for the conference finals run, and then kind of your only playoff contributions throughout this run, throughout this Jimmy era has been the rookie year when in the bubble. Like, I just don't think there's any way that and this is me just speculating, of course. I don't think there's any way Pat and has Bam and Tyler in the same category. But the counter to that would be that he did put both of them in the same category when it comes to, well, we need somebody to get to 25 points per game this year. I don't know which one it's going to be, but we need Bam or Tyler to get there, all that, which I think is reasonable too. And again, Heat fans are not going to want to hear that. But yeah, I wouldn't think that Bam and Tyler are going to be in the same category. Now, I had the Ira quotes pulled up, and then I got the paywall after it was up for like a minute, and I would love to read the exact quote here, but it just happened to go away at the exact time that I was going to start talking. So it's amazing. But basically, he said that Tyler wasn't on the table.
I got it. Somehow I got through the Sun-Sentinel's paywall here. I did. This must be why they're not out of business yet. All right, let's go. So we got this one comes in. Okay. I'll read. Ira has an intro to this, but I'll give you the quote specifically. In the business long enough, Pat Riley appreciates how it works. In other words, not getting the big name guys. Quote, if I was in the media, that's how I would look at it, he said of the summer swirl of speculation. But he's not in the media, et cetera, et cetera. Quote, when there's a narrative out there that gets ignited through social media and the hypotheticals of whether it was a failure, I don't buy that at all because I know exactly where this team is from that standpoint. Excuse me. From my perspective and the ownership perspective and all the internal people with the Heat, here's the 4 words nobody's going to want to hear. We like our team.
We like our team. Accept reality. You didn't say accept reality. That was me.
I felt like we should.
That was Barry.
We should have put the Barry.
If you keep scrolling down, get to the Tyler part, and I think that's the.
Yeah, here we go. There's a lot more parenthetical here from Ira, and then quote: I will say this. That we never offered Tyler in any trade. We've never shopped him to anybody. It's just part of the business. By the way, that's accurate. No, I mean it's accurate in terms of shopping him. They have not shopped him. They've included him in conversations for Kevin Durant and Dame Lillard.
A whole lot of semantics going on right now.
I mean, is it parsing words? Yeah, I mean it's 2 top 75 players. I would
for sure.
The way it was put to me, I like better than the way Riley put it here publicly because this isn't really true. I mean, we've never offered Tyler in any trade. I mean, I mean, if you're in conversations with or you're trying to be in conversations with Portland and they know what you have and this is the core piece, you kind of are offering him
The formal offer
without.
was it? Is that what it is?
I
Technically,
guess, but again, the part I understand the organization was saying they haven't shopped him. That I agree with based on my information. Offering him, I mean, if they could have gotten Dame, he would have gone. Like most likely. I mean, we said there were routes to do it without him, but most likely he would have gone, and we said that. And then it says here another part of the quote, the fact that Tyler has been involved in these discussions, he almost should wear that as a badge of honor. Again, that's consistent with what we said. I hate to see that happen. You can't stop it. This was a runaway train this summer. It couldn't be stopped. It just was. And the more you would try to speak on it in any way, shape, or form, then it's what it is. But I definitely I communicated with the agents. I didn't talk directly to Tyler, and I saw him in training camp. He dapped me up a little bit, and that was it. But I will tell you again, we have never shopped him to anybody. People call on him all the time, and we say goodbye and thank you. And that's what they've told me too. They always ask me third best player. That's what I'm always told. But there are instances with all players. Bam Adebayo was discussed in a trade this year, but not from us. We said no. So you have to get on the phone and talk to people. And then he closes here. I like our team. I'm not worried again about what the narrative is, what the perspective is. I think we have a great chance. All right. I want to tell you about a sponsor, and then we'll do our final thoughts on this. And we were supposed to do a defensive pod today, so maybe that'll be tonight, and maybe my voice will recover. I do want to tell you about Rock Esports Center, though. I hope Alex's voice is okay because he's hosting this thing on Friday night. So we've told you about Rock Esports Center down there in South Miami, Palmetto Bay. It's awesome. It's just awesome. They got food, they got drinks. You can play all your video games. They got a day pass for $25. If you mention 5 Reasons, you get $5 off. They're going to be a sponsor with us the entire year, but specifically this Friday. Now, I will not be there, so maybe that's a good thing for you guys. But $30 a person, you sign up, and you can play in a 2K tournament. Alex is going to be there. We think Brady's going to be there. I got to check with his agent. But Rock Esports Center in Palmetto Bay. And again, there's going to be a game on. Everybody can watch the game, chill, watch the Heat beat the Celtics or lose the Celtics, whatever ends up happening. They like their team. And then afterwards, 2K tournament. So come join everybody it's Rock. That's ROK Esports Center. I want to read one
register
more
for the
here.
tournament online on their website, by the way.
Yes.
Makes it a lot easier for us if you register ahead of time as opposed to registering there, so you can set up the tournament and not have to, make people wait.
Yep, exactly. All right. So here, this one did not come from Pat Riley today. Okay, so this is the last part. Alex can remove that from the screen because it's in my face. All right, there we go. Sorry, it's the Claritin or the Sudafed or whatever combination of things I'm taking right now. This is a quote from a Mark Spears article. We know Mark Spears has a good relationship, not just with Dame, but also with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal said, and this was the gut punch today, because this didn't need to come out get transcribed right after the Riley comments, because we didn't even have time to put those into context before this came out. My initial favorite was Miami. We call Miami. Riley says, I'll go talk to Mickey and figure it out. So he goes, talks to Mickey. I'm like, what's Miami doing? Dragging feet? Eventually, Miami, said they just can't do it. That was a gut punch. I was like, dang, that was my spot. Now, look, we'll get into the economics of this, whether or not they, were waiting for something better. We know what Beal went for. It wasn't a lot. And it really was about the contract. He and Dame were the two players we've been talking about the most as fits for the Heat, who have both said they wanted to be with the Heat. And in both cases, teams swooped in. The Dame thing does not look financially motivated to me. It was, having been involved in that process, talking to those involved in the process, they were willing to take on Dame's contract. It's just Blazers wouldn't talk to them. I mean, what are you going to do? Okay. The Beal thing, if you want to make an argument for Beal, and there are arguments against Beal, by the way, but if you want to make an argument for Beal, you can make an argument that was financially motivated. The decision to stay away from him. And I think that is, maybe it deflects from Pat a little bit, but then it goes above Pat with the fan base. I don't think Pat's going to get blamed for that. Again, the quote is, specifically, Riley says, I'll go talk to Mickey and figure it out. So How do you, before we go on this, how do you read that one?
Like you said, it was a complete gut punch. It was the the cherry on top, and the worst type of cherry. It's an awful cherry. It stings, man. Like it stings for Heat fans reading this, and like you said, and like we talked about before, it's just all coming out at the same time as Pat's interviews with Ira and Anthony Chang, which we encourage you guys to read and not just see the aggregated quotes. And that's no shots at Drew Starr or anything like that. I'm just saying because those guys are the ones who did the work, so they deserve the reads and the clicks. And anyways, I just think it stings because um, of the way that it ended. Right, Dame going to the Bucks, Drew going to the Celtics. The only way this could have ended up worse for Heat fans is if Beal ended up on like the Sixers or something, in a Harden trade, and you know what I mean, just like another team in the conference that you consider a rival, even though not on the same tier as the Bucks and Celtics, of course. But it really it pretty much was the worst case scenario for Heat fans when you go into the summer headed, coming straight out of a finals run. And right, if you remember, right after the finals ended, all the Beal and Dame stuff started coming out. It was almost right after. Like, so it's people were kind of preparing for it all summer. It ended so poorly. And just seeing all of this come out today, it's gonna be unfortunate for Heat fans. And I do think I agree with you. I don't think the Dame thing was financially motivated. It seems like they're willing to go all in for him, and they weren't for Tyler. I mean, excuse me, for Bradley Beal. And I think that's what it comes down to is Brad had the no trade clause, which has been reported on that the Heat didn't like because it takes away from their flexibility. I just think they didn't want to put down what it took. The question is what would it have taken, right? Because the Suns didn't give up like that much. It was like a bunch of second round picks, if I remember correctly, and some swaps and stuff. But so I don't know
And
that
Landry
what would have
Shamet.
been. Yeah, I don't know what would have been the comparable Heat offer, just because the Heat don't have like a multitude of seconds. I don't know how many first they would have been able or would have been willing to offer. So it's hard to get into that. Like, and also we know with the context is that if they would have gone in for Beal, it would have taken him out of the game for Dame. And we know
Right.
how real the Dame thing was for them. It's just when you hear Brad saying it like that, right, where it's like, oh man, Miami was my spot. That I think that's the money quote right there, and that's what's gonna hurt Heat fans the most. And honestly, I hate this because now, like, I don't want I don't want us to go a step backwards. We're into what we just got out from, which is like this whole point of the summer sucked and everybody went everywhere and we don't get anybody, and that whole line of thinking, like right before the season starts, that we're gonna get back to basketball. We got a taste of it, and it's right back to where we, just came out from. So it's unfortunate.
Well, there are a couple things here. One is, I mean, there's the reasonable argument to be made, which I think was aggregated and pushed out there about a week ago. About is Bradley Beal really worth $30 million more per year than Tyler Hero is?
But
If
it
you've
might
got
not
a
have
develop,
taken Tyler to get him.
well, that's true too, and you could have been playing the two of them together. And if your argument is, well, you wouldn't have a point guard, well, currently you don't have a point guard, so there you are. And by the way, Phoenix doesn't have a point guard, uh, and they're using Bradley Beal a point guard. So, again, that's part of it. But this all comes back to this, okay? And then I'll have my closing thought here. Um, this all goes back to this. Pat is on the record clearly stating all we need is a guy to ask out. And I think that's where the frustration from Heat fans come in, because now you have two guys who were the two players who made the most sense for them going forward. Giannis was always a pipe dream. KD in the various places he was always a pipe dream. It was really about these two, and both have made it clear. Yeah, it was Miami for us. It was Miami. But for one reason or another, they couldn't get it done. Either in Beal's case, maybe it was money, and in Lillard's case, it was maybe it was the way it was handled. I don't think by the Heat. I don't blame that. Maybe by Lillard's agent, and then again by the way that the Blazers took that and didn't want to deal professionally with Miami. I don't blame the Heat for that situation. But that's the part that for fans to see this is like, okay, well, you said somebody's got to ask out. And look, Jimmy did, and you got him the second time around, not from the first team, not from Minnesota, where there was the hanging up the phone and all that, but from Philadelphia. But again, Dwayne facilitated that in some ways, as he has with others, and we want to see this get done without Dwayne. I feel like that's part of this also. And I'll just close with this thought. I love when Pat Riley speaks. I wish Pat Riley would speak more often. Okay, this once a year thing is not, it's not enough for those of us. I mean, that was, one of the best parts of covering this team was hearing Pat's perspective on it, even if it wasn't a nightly basis anymore as a coach, but more frequently as an executive. But I'll say this: I don't think these two interviews are going to help the cause. I don't. I'm reading them through, and I just am like, and the reporters are just writing it, and they didn't spin it, so it's not. I think Pat's own words are frustrating the fan base right now as I read it on, the artist formerly known as Twitter. So, open invitation. You know what? Can we have Greg on that episode if Pat comes on? I don't know. There'll be too much fawning going on, I think, right? Probably. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go get a throat lozenge. Thanks to Alex. We'll be on playback at some point today. Also, maybe by the time that this post. Thanks to our sponsors, Rock Esports Center. Sign up for Friday night. Sign up on the website for Friday night, and of course, we'll be at the home opener on Wednesday.